I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like to say Will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're dedicating this meeting to all the election inspectors and poll workers who worked incredibly hard. Extremely long hours. I don't think they even had time for bathroom breaks. I mean, it was an incredible turnout for the election, and we just want to express our gratitude. Rita, the roll call, please.
Wendy Burton.
Yes.
Ann Arendt.
Yes.
Margaret Fallon.
Yes.
Nathan Virtue.
Yes.
Frank Pepe absent.
Okay. Town Board Liaison Reports. Margaret?
Sure. The CAC has finally set a date for their fall event, which is going to be down at the Stanford Wildlife Preserve, and it's going to be putting in some plants and getting rid of some invasive species before the cold weather hits. Anyone who is interested in volunteering, you can sign up at either the Duchess Land Conservancy website or the Stanford CAC Instagram account. Lunch is included, and if anyone, if you can't stay for the whole time, like even for people who could come for an hour or two, that would be greatly appreciated. The CAC and the Duchess Land Conservancy have, this is the second of their events, and they've really been super successful, and it's also just, it's nice to get outside and do something to beautify the town. So if anyone is interested, please sign up.
Thank you. Nathan?
Hi.
Hi.
From the Recreation Committee Department, the first thing was the Haunted Fortress. For those that don't know, there was nearly 2,000 people showed up. They generated over $25,000. They're in the throes of the winterization right now. And if anyone has FOMO from being involved this year, they're meeting again next month to talk about next year already. There was a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement. They're even considering, I don't know if I'm going to put this out there, but I will for them, but a winter walkthrough. So maybe if there's something they can do kind of like a haunted Christmas kind of a theme. So
Or Hanukkah.
Yeah. Well, there was that Nightmare Before Christmas is the name of the movie. They were thinking something along that lines. A couple other issues they were concerned about: internet access, storage is becoming a question mark for them. But all in all, they were pretty happy with it. And they all feel like they've learned a lot for getting ready for next year. There's going to be a special guest at the firehouse with the tree lighting and parade of lights. We just wanted to let folks know about that.
December 3rd.
Yes. Oh, is it?
With the parade of lights?
Yeah, but, okay, yes. Sorry, there was another thing. They're also looking at they're still hoping to try and do something that is winter-oriented. And then also, I still don't know the best way to put this, but none of us do it. It's either like an adult theme thing or a mature audience theme thing. Basically, something for parents and kids, and non-parents that are over 18, I guess. That's the way to put it. I know, that's it. But it's not for the kids. Basically, yeah. There's no good way to put it.
You're blushing.
Well, they're doing an indoor pickleball event at the Cold Spring School. They're going to try to do that on Tuesdays, and that will be starting next week. They're still doing outdoor games as well. There's discussions of doing some free play events through January and March as well. And they're deciding to not have a meeting next month. To kind of take a break from things.
Thank you.
I was unable to attend.
Yeah, the zoning. supervisor's report and financials. For my supervisor's report, I don't think I have very much to say. Locally, I'd like to just note that Proposition 2 was passed, which means there will be no cannabis dispensaries in the town of Stanford. I would like, this is, I don't know why I need to say this, but I'd like everyone to know that the town board had nothing to do with the wording of the proposition. We found it as confusing as I believe every single voter. I don't know who writes those things, but it was like it was an Urdu backwards and was incredibly difficult for anybody to understand. But the board had voted, and I'm very glad that this was the path we took, that 5 people shouldn't decide such an issue in the town, and that we would leave it, that it was a kind of issue that should be decided by the voters, and that's what happened, and I'm really glad that the process worked. The other thing I just wanted to say as a liaison was I did go to the October Fire District meeting, and the budget, it was mostly about their budget. And the biggest topic of conversation was the burden that the EMS service, the cost of it, that the fire district has to bear. It shows up as a tax line, whether it's on the fire district's line or on the town's line or whoever's line it is, but the EMS costs, the ambulance costs are very, very high. And I was at a meeting of the Dutchess County mayors and supervisors last month, and it's a concern in basically every single town. It's like, how do we get the county perhaps to step in and give us some relief, because, especially on the smaller towns, but it is a large concern, and I believe it's going to have to be addressed globally, if at all possible. But that issue is alive and exists. As far as you all received my supervisor's bank reconciliation and financial report. As far as my October financial forecast, revenues as of the end of October, our overall revenues were at 114.43%. So that was 14.3% above projection. Outstanding revenues, as in lines that have done really well, include sales tax, clerk fees, building permits, court fines, certificate of occupancies and research fees. And then this line is still under. The cable fees are under, but the third quarter arrived today. So we're only like $10,000 off the budgeted line, and we accrue for that because it comes in next year. So that should be fine. Appropriations, with November and December appropriations still to be spent. The general fund has used 75.89 of its expenditures. I believe we'll be in good shape. The one mitigating circumstance, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I won't. The highway fund has spent 77.24% of their appropriations budget, so again, I think we should look fine at the end of the year. Is that everybody? Yes, that's everybody. So I would now like to open the floor to the privilege of the floor. So if you have something you'd like to say to the board, please go to the podium because of the mic is there, and just give us your name and address. And what is it? It's 3 minutes?
2. 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes. And remember, there's a second privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting, and so if you don't get to finish, you can, or if something comes up during the meeting that you want to address.
We'll get started.
Yep, go ahead.
Dennis Monroe, 25 Thompson Lane, currently Assistant Chief of Stanford Fire Company. Addressing the EMS system and the budget has greatly increased the district's budget because of having to hire paid EMS. I would implore the board, next time maybe you go to the mayors and supervisors meeting for the county, to really pressure the county to institute a county-wide EMS system. The county already has a payroll system, a time-off system, an employee system, benefit system, and to get these EMTs and paramedics on board as a county employee would offer them so much more benefit, and you would probably draw in a lot of people to get better pay, benefits, and whatnot. All right, so enough said on that, because it's going to be very costly, very time-consuming to get that set up. But for the betterment of the entire county, especially of us rural companies,
Right.
we need the help, all right, because the volunteerism is not there anymore. On the flip side, Stanford has been really instrumental in getting a Ukraine donation going. The company sent over the first shipment to Ukraine. We have a bunch of pictures and did a lot of good. We donated fire, EMS gear, medical supplies, tourniquets, and all that kind of stuff. And what they're really looking for now, because winter is coming and the Russians are attacking their grid, their water, their electric, they're cold. So there's a sign on the board. We're doing a clothing drive. Hats, coats, gloves, socks, boots.
Oversized pen.
Yeah. The one fire chief that was speaking said, Ukrainians, I don't know what it is, we all have big feet. 10 plus for boots and sleeping bags, because the electrical contractors that are working to repair the grid, as soon as it goes down, they're out there, they're doing what our guys do after a major disaster. They're sleeping in the trucks. They need sleeping bags to stay warm. The Russians are shooting the fire hose, just to basically put it out of commission. So it's like we've sent the first one, the second, the first shipment has already arrived. We've only sent the second, and the last and final push is we're trying to do a clothing drive. So the number is on the sign there. If anybody has anything, to donate, we're going to try to get as much stuff to go, and we're working with a church outfit out of Syracuse, Rochester area. The guy's Ukrainian. He actually drove the shipment down to the Newark port. It went to Poland. He flew to Poland, drove the truck, and met his two brothers just outside of Kyiv. And there was a couple, they have to be very quiet about where the stuff is. They really have to move the fire trucks all over the place so we don't get bombed, because that's what the Russians are doing. So, but yes.
Is this clothing for the entire family?
This is
infants to adults?
basically we're looking for the adults, because those are the ones fighting. I mean, there are soldiers going to war in sneakers, and now it's coming into cold weather. But yes, I mean, if anything is donated, it's going to go. So I mean,
Dennis, what's when's your deadline for when you'd like to get?
Probably a month and a half. So I mean, and we're going to talk to the Northern Metro News, have them try to put an article out there, notify the public, because the shipping containers are huge. We can pack a lot of stuff in a shipping container and get it over there.
So we can just bring stuff to the firehouse at certain times? Or?
Call the number. It's actually Doreen Brown's number.
Oh.
She's the contact person. Along with,
Just walk down the hall.
along with Lynn Young, Laura Gilhooly. We're all trying to work, because we have the shipping container that we on-off donated or loaned us at the firehouse.
Fabulous.
So we'll start packing stuff in, and as soon as we fill it up, we'll ship it out. So
We do truck checks generally on Monday night, and
that's 7
that was
p.m.
kind of the
Yep.
time we thought we'd accept donations on Monday nights.
Monday night?
Monday at 7 p.m. Yep.
I'll just put that in the newsletter.
Yep.
Would you take blankets?
Oh, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Anything to help keep the population warm. Yep.
Okay.
So, thank you.
That's great, Dennis, thank you. Nancy. Okay,
I'll pass it down for you.
we'll just do the pass down.
I'm going to go over, but I have people who will see their time. Do you want that now?
No, just read. Well, it's silly to get people up there and say,
Hi,
hello.
I'm Nancy Kryzak, 458 Hobbs Lane, Lincoln Corners. This regards the timber harvesting on property adjacent to Hobbs Lane. Dear Supervisor Burton and members of the town board. On Saturday, October 29th, 2022, facilitated by our town supervisor, Wendy Burton, a group of concerned residents of Hobbs Lane met with John Sylvester, the forester in charge of the potential logging operation on the Malabar Hills LLC land, which is in close proximity to many of our properties. It was very helpful to us to learn more details about the logging plan directly from Mr. Sylvester and to express our specific concerns to him as nearby residents. As we walked the properties, Mr. Sylvester told us that this was the first time he had ever met with area residents while initiating the logging project. We are very grateful to the town supervisor, Wendy Burton, for responding to our letters, meeting with a small group on site, and for arranging and attending the forester meeting for its duration. Having now had time to consider what we learned from the forester, we still hold strong concerns about this entire operation and how it will affect our properties and the quality of our lives, as well as what it portends for any future logging operations in other parts of Stanford. Project oversight. Mr. Sylvester clarified on October 29th that he is the point person for this entire operation, and Wendy Burton can call him if there is any problem going forward. However, he also informed us that he will stop by, quote, if he is in the area on another job, end quote. We do not believe that we can expect the forester to protect any interests other than those of the landowner for whom he works. Furthermore, we have little confidence that our town building inspector will be overseeing the logging operation and assuring compliance with even our limited town laws and guidelines. Would the area residents with no legal standing be left to provide active and ongoing oversight for this major logging operation? This responsibility seems misplaced, especially as this town does employ a full-time building inspector at taxpayer expense. Disruption of quality of rural residential life, noise and air pollution. The timber harvesting application demands no compliance with on-site time limits for the logging activity other than the one-year permit. The forester definitively stated on October 29th that the active logging operation would be scheduled for as many hours per day, days per week, and months throughout the permit year as deemed necessary to fulfill the contract to harvest 400 trees. Please note that this ongoing activity gives area residents no guarantee of any respite whatsoever from unending noise and air pollution, from large falling trees, logging trucks, and heavy machinery in constant operation. We will be held hostage for the commercial gain of one landowner who does not even reside among us. Although of no benefit to those of us on Hobbs Lane, we strongly recommend that the town board enact new local ordinances which limit the hours per day, days per week, and monthly timber harvest activity to somewhat preserve the quality of life for residents in future logging areas. Logging activity close to residences and property lines. The forester told us that he expects to cut an access road on the 5 acres on the northeast side of Hobbs Lane, regardless of critical safety concerns, that the proposed access would be located on a blind curve and directly opposite a home that sits very close to the road and houses young children. We have been told that our highway superintendent will not allow this dangerous driveway access. We greatly commend him. However, the forester voiced his unwavering intent to log that acreage with site access at his most feasible and cost-effective location, while we hold the highest regard for Jim Myers, our highway superintendent. We remain extremely concerned about this point of contention. On the forester's site map, It appears that the access road for all logging on the west side of Hobbs Lane will be cut very close to the rear property line of 429 Hobbs. If so, that homeowner will be subjected to unrelenting and untenable disturbances during each day of the operation because his residence sits close to that same property line. We strongly urge the town to mandate that access roads for timber harvesting be located at a reasonable, defined distance from property lines to provide a measure of protection to those residing on adjacent properties. In summary, the residents of Hobbs Lane have limited recourse with regard to any of these issues. The current zoning code for logging addresses none of these concerns, and applicants must meet very few requirements. Unfortunately, we have become the test case for the consequences to homeowners who must endure logging in their residential area. 3 months ago, a number of us asked for a moratorium or an ordinance to be enacted halting any timber harvesting until the antiquated zoning code could be reviewed and potentially updated to reflect new parameters. It is now November and the zoning code remains the same, and the logging may proceed much as before. The town board hopefully recognizes, that these same issues will likely soon arise elsewhere in Stanford and should be addressed without further delay. We who have signed below and all our neighbors can only hope for the best outcome as this logging operation begins. We urge the town board to proceed with good and timely intent to protect other residents from our local distress, which can only escalate as this operation commences. We will let you know how it goes and welcome each of you to visit our quite precious neck of the woods. With respect, Pete Bove, Christine and Thomas Cronin, Corey and Nicole Flanagan, Amina and Anthony Elderfield, Carol Hanlon, Dennis and Luann Higgins, Nancy Kryzak, Andrea and Martin Mosbacher. Addresses as noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
There are just a few things, Nancy, that came to mind for me. One of which is when I talked to John Zystra, he specifically said that the logging would happen Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We have added a line on the permit that, I'm sorry, on the application, which we just finished again today, that states hours of operation, meaning the intended hours of operation. And if they're not if the operation comes in and says they're going to start at 6 and end at 8, I do not think we're going to allow that, if we're allowed. But it was really different what John said to me than what you took away from it. And
He said, I stood right there and he said exactly what I read in the letter. I wrote that.
yeah, no, I know you wrote it, but and then all I'm saying is he said something entirely different
I
to me.
understand. This is the issue of oversight.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it was like not weekends, which was,
And he didn't do that with us at all.
yeah, that's
He
what,
told us. We asked him, are you going to be here on weekends? And he said what I wrote in the letter.
okay. Well, we'll have to look at that because it truly is about, it couldn't be more opposite than what we were
Yeah, I
doing.
mean, I was not exaggerating at all.
Oh, I didn't think you were. I'm just telling you what my
No, I mean, I'm delighted.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely delighted to hear you saying that.
That is totally my understanding.
That is what happens, but I know and others were saying that too. I know what he said to us.
Okay. Another thing I want to say is that we've discussed, and I actually talked to Don Smith about this morning, that, and the board and I, we haven't discussed this as a board, but what I want to do to begin with is to have Don make a weekly visit with photographs of whatever area is being harvested. And I also have been thinking perhaps that we can bring in a second set of eyes. I don't know who that is yet. I don't know if Jim can spare somebody from the highway department who could get, somewhat knowledgeable in what they should be looking for as far as bad behavior on the part of the logger. But I do absolutely agree that we need to, if you see something that's wrong, it's not your job to be our eyes and ears, but it would be really helpful if you did tell us, but I absolutely believe that we have to figure out a better oversight, or a real oversight mechanism. The other thing is, I don't care what the forester wants to do, there will not be an access road driveway given on the property across from Corey and Mickey's house. Jim was a flat out no way over my dead body. It's a blind curve. It's a narrow road. There's not room for logging trucks, and so it's not going to happen. I mean, Corey, I don't know what else to say except Jim. I mean, Jim and I did go down there again last week, and the site we looked at was not not the Cronin's house. It's not right there. It's further up the road, but it is not right next to Pete Bowen's house either. So I don't know if we need to make another field trip so I can show you where Jim believes is the only place he's granting the driveway access, which does come with cobblestone, as we've discussed. So some of this still seems a little like we still have some more details to be sure of, and I 100% understand the adjective. I do. I mean, I also know that across the street from me, there's 40 acres. The owner wanted to clear cut it. He could. I mean, he simply could. He'd be allowed to. I think when we have finally passed the comprehensive plan, which we hope to do this year, but we, knock on wood, we'll get it done by December. But we will get the zoning commission up and running, and I think the very first ordinance that should be looked at is the timber harvesting. There are a lot, I mean, the entire zoning code has to be looked at. It's ancient and has a lot of holes in it, but I do think we can make that a priority. I understand it's after the fact for you. So those are the only, I think those are the only thoughts that came, hopefully to ease you a tiny bit. But we will get those hours figured out, and we will get a supervisory role in place. And I don't know if we can just depend on Don Smith. We may have to bring in,
Just one thing, it's in the letter, but could I just reiterate, whatever you're doing with the comprehensive plan, the zoning, all of that, this distance from property lines for the access road, I mean, think about 400 trees. Every single one of those trees is going to be on its own, and it's going to be right outside of wherever Pete's kitchen window, right up the hill. His property line, his house is close to the back of his property, and on their map, the logging map, it looks like their access road to get up, to the logging area is going to go right along the Pete's property line. It's going to be on the Malabar Hills property.
The Moss property too.
But it's going to be right at his property line. That's why I included as you go forward to really look at having a distance.
It was my understanding that road is down below in that almost gully. There's Pete's, the ridge goes down, it's her property, and then there's an existing old road down there. I don't mean the ATV road, I mean there's an existing road. And that's where the trees are going to be coming out.
Because they gotta get back out to Hobbs Lane.
And I don't think...
Before the marshland down the road there, so
right, but
you're going to come through there and make a left turn and head out towards the street.
Correct, but I don't think it's right near your property. But again, I mean, I looked at it with Jim this week, but So I don't know,
That doesn't, in the letter, I'm not referring to where the entrance from Hot Lane is. I'm talking about like, in the back of the property where all these trees are gonna come from.
mhm.
They have to get from up at the top of the hill, they have to go due south and then come down to Hops Lane. So in going due south, they're all on his map, it looks like the access road from the logging area up by the woodland pool is coming right along Pete's property line. That's what it looks like on the map, which I don't have it anymore.
I think you gave it to me.
But that's what I'm talking about, distance from property line in that regard. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
I will.
Okay, Corey.
All right, first of all, sorry for being late. No, I just want to, obviously, all of us on Hobbs Lanes still have concerns going on, you know, and are worried about the projected oversight on the project. But I do want to thank you guys for the interest that you've taken in this issue, the fact that you've heard us out multiple times and met with us in your office, met with us at our places. So I do appreciate that, and it is very much an optimistic and hopeful thing that communication has been there, and that we have at least opened the can of worms and began to sort through it. But I, reiterate the concerns that were in the letter as well. Obviously, we signed it, but we do appreciate what has been done so far to at least try and address the issue, and we encourage that cooperation and that type of interest moving forward. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Pardon me? Hannah, good try. Impacted. Then I will close the first privilege of the floor and make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Well, I had quite a shock when I came back to Town Hall tonight. Steve Godovich had left papers in my mailbox, which shows that the front page of the budget document, which includes the tax summary, the library levy was never updated. And Steve has provided some different numbers from Frank's calculation. So because I need to verify Steve's numbers and we need to plug in the correct number for the library levy, I have no choice but to postpone a motion to adopt the preliminary budget. And I think we're going to try to meet on Tuesday night, reconvene to do that. Okay? The next...
Oh, well, I want to say something about the budget, because our public budget meetings, we haven't had this large of a crowd. So
haven't had any?
if anybody didn't get a hard copy of the budget, there's still a couple up here. There's also a digital version online. But one of the major changes that we made to the budget for people who have a version, it is on page 3 and it is line 48, and that is the salary for the supervisor for the town of Stanford. So the salary has not been increased in over 20 years.
Dave Tito was supervisor when
So
he raised it.
almost 30 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
12.
Okay. So the town board agreed to raise the superintendent's salary from $15,000 to $19,000. At the $15,000, we had the lowest paid supervisor in Dutchess County. Some supervisors make twice as much than the town of Stanford supervisor. Even with the raise, the town of Stanford still has the lowest paid supervisor in Dutchess County. But I just wanted to point that out in terms of transparency, because it is one of the biggest changes that we have in this year's budget.
And the town supervisor recused herself from that vote. Okay, thank you, Margaret. The next item is the recreation. The dock bids have been rescinded. We got Lauren Osterman, our phenomenal rec director, got a grant for $100,000 or $125,000. $125 to replace the docks at the pond, which is phenomenal. They're older than I am. So we did find out, though, that because the money for the rec docks is funded through a grant, the county first has to approve the bids. Then it is advertised for bids on the Empire State Purchasing Group. So it's a different process than what we normally go through. So we had to rescind the bids that we already put out. So that's that. And then just as a point of information, Rita, number 3.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim Myers and his secretary, Carrie Whalen, gave me the Town of Stanford Department inventory for 2022, and it's been filed in my office. And all of you got copies as well.
Thank you. Carrie DePaula.
Yes, Carrie. What did I call her?
Whalen.
Oh, my God.
I know. Okay.
I'm sitting next to Bob, I guess.
Our first resolution number 11A, is the resolution approval of the Rossi, do you say Rossi or Ross? Rossi tax certiorari.
Yep.
I've never pronounced that word right in 2.5 years.
You did it phonetically the other day. It was fun.
So the resolution reads, whereas the Supreme Court of the State of New York, County of Dutchess, has come to an agreement in the assessment dispute between the parties Rossi and the Town of Stanford, the Board of Assessment Review, and the Assessor of the Town of Stanford. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Stanford accepts the decision as follows, and it's a 8-page decision, which I will not read. Furthermore, the Town Board grants Attorney Ian McDonald the right to sign the agreement. Are there any questions or discussion?
Did she actually make a motion? Okay. No
Margaret
discussion.
just had the data.
So, on this tax certiorari resolution.
I will do a roll call vote, please. Wendy Burton?
Yes.
Ann Arendt?
Yes.
Margaret Fallon?
Yes.
Nathan Virtue?
Yes.
Frank Pepe absent.
Okay. Resolution 11B of 2022 to transfer funds from the Highway Fund ending in 837720 to the Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund ending in 3011022. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Stanford approved the purchase of a Highway Wildcat hydraulic boom mower to be delivered in January of 2023 to the amount of $148,184.80. We approved that in May 2022. And whereas the current balance in the Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund will not sufficiently cover this purchase, and whereas the current balance of the Highway Fund is circa $600,000 with additional funds coming in through as CHIPS reimbursement, and whereas the 2023 property taxes will be available to the Highway Fund at the beginning of March 2023, and estimated expenditures for intervening months will be under $300,000. Simply said, there will be enough money in the Highway Fund to function until the taxes come in. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Stanford approves the transfer of $200,000 from the Highway Fund to the Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund.
Just so folks know what CHIPS is, it's the Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program.
So we
Which
get...
is why we say CHIPS.
Because it's a mouthful. So the highway has to spend the money, and it's only can be spent on pavement and vehicles.
Something that lasts more than 10 years.
Correct, thank you. So they have to spend it before we can get reimbursed for it. That's the way it works. So can I have a second?
Second.
Are there any discussion? Okay,
Who did the second?
they all did. And did.
Ann, okay.
Nathan didn't.
Yeah.
Wendy Burton.
Yes.
Ann Arend.
Yes.
Margaret Fallon.
Yes.
Nathan LaVertue.
Yes.
Frank Covey absent.
Resolution 11C, 2022, grant of American Rescue Plan funds to the Stanford Grange number 808 for its food pantry. Whereas the United States Treasury has issued its final rule on the allowed uses for distribution of American Rescue Plan funds, and whereas one of the allowed uses is to assess nonprofits, that can't be the right word, assist, that makes
Assist.
more sense, nonprofits that were negatively financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the Stanford Grange 808 is a nonprofit community organization whose food pantry provides food to those within Stanford who suffer from food insecurity and whose own funds need replenishing as demand on the food they supply has greatly increased. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Stanford approve the donation of $4,000 from the American Rescue Plan Fund account to provide assistance to the Stanford Grange 808 in its ongoing mission of serving those in our community who are in need of the assistance that the food pantry provides.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Wendy Burton.
Yes.
Ann Arend.
Yes.
Margaret Fallon.
Yes.
Nathan LaVertue.
Yes.
Frank Covey absent.
Resolution 11D is, what I'd like to do is, and Bob, I think, has something to say before we even vote, but I would like to make I'll reserve this motion for a minute, but I would like to make a motion to vote to adopt proposed local law number 2 of 2022, amending sections chapter 140 of the town code entitled subdivision of land with respect to private roads, homeowners associations, and conservation density subdivisions with changes.
And there's
Second.
copies if anybody wants.
Second.
Okay, so in the adoption process, there's a preliminary step of complying with SEQR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. You've had the public hearing, you've had this application before you, you've been considering it. We need to, we have a form that the state uses, a short environmental assessment form, which describes the action, and with a narrative, which needs to be approved by the board. And I have copies of it here. If you, I had circulated. Unfortunately, I sent out yesterday. Sorry that it didn't get to you sooner. Most of the answers are, most of the questions in the form relate to project applications where something specific is being done on property, and where a board might be approving a particular project. In this case, we're just making some rather minor revisions to the subdivision code itself, which are, of a generic nature, doesn't pertain to any particular project, but will govern future projects going forward. So most of the questions that relate to specific projects would not be applicable. So there's the. Would you like me to pass these down?
I have no idea.
Bob, do we have to, are we approving the content or the action? Or both?
The first step is to, the environmental process is a review to determine if the action that you're taking, which will be the adoption of these amendments to the code, have any substantial adverse environmental impacts. So we need to first make a resolution to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a negative declaration.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you disagreed with that, then we'd have to do further environmental work to review the impacts and make sure they're mitigated. But we, presumably would not need to do that in this case.
So it doesn't count that we already did this once?
Well, I
Because
don't
we
think
had to
I don't think we've done this stage for this particular
Iteration.
amendment.
I thought we did it the very first time around. But I guess it doesn't matter because we're doing it a second time.
I don't know that frankly, I don't recall that we did, but I may be wrong.
I don't think we did.
I thought I
think
had a
we
copy
were-
of it, but.
I think we did it for the prior local law,
I know that
Okay.
which was the farmers.
yeah, we did it for the prior, and when this had come up before it got revised, and we had to go through the new iteration of it. We were prepared to do it, but I don't think we actually acted on it.
Okay.
So let me pass these down, and there's I want to keep one,
I have mine.
and I want to give one to Rita also.
I think I have it.
You have it, good, okay.
This is one
So,
for Wendy?
so
No,
you
I
can
have
pass
one.
those down. There's one that Wendy should sign
Oh.
to,
I just file that signed one, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to send it with the
That's
local
right,
law.
just file it. And,
So, I'll ask it a different way. Are we approving that the action of this being submitted, or are we approving the content of this?
approving the content of it.
Okay, got it. That's where-
And I'm going to also forward to you the part 2 of this form, which, and on page 2 of that, part 3, at the bottom, there's a resolution to determine that, based on your review, that there are no substantial environmental effects. And then we have a resolution. The third piece is, pass those down. And the third piece is the resolution for seeker. And the resolution, without reading all 4 pages of it, basically says that I'm sorry, I passed out the resolution to
I have the
adopt.
resolution digitally.
I have it digitally as well.
And it's 11D.
Yeah. There's a
Mine says.
Oh, no, D.
yeah.
E is the alarm law.
At the top.
You are correct.
Yeah, at the top, it says resolution of seeker determination.
Right. Oh, God. What resolution is this again?
Yeah.
The F, 11F.
Do I have that one?
And the key point of this resolution is that it's resolved that the action will not result in any significant adverse impacts on the environment. And that, so we don't need to prepare an environmental impact statement, and we will issue a negative declaration. So,
Can I just see that one for a minute?
yep, you have that.
Guess I can't do it. Very presumptuous.
Okay, so are we?
So if that may be, so I would suggest that the secret resolution be moved and adopted.
That would be Resolution 11F of 2022, Resolution for Seeker Determination.
Mm-hmm.
For local law number 2 of 2022, amending chapter 140 of the town code entitled subdivision of land. So I make a motion to pass this resolution.
Second.
I can't second.
I saw that. You're not going to read it? No?
Oh, the whole thing?
No, you don't have to.
Well, it'll be in the minutes.
It will?
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy Burton,
Yes.
Ann Arendt,
Yes.
Margaret Fallon,
Yes.
Nathan Virtue,
Yes.
Frank Pepe. Absent.
So now, may I make
So
a resolution?
now the resolution to adopt the
The law.
local law number 2.
I have that somewhere. That's 11D. Resolution 11D of 2022, to adopt local law number 2 of 2022, amending various sections of Chapter 140 of the Town Code entitled Subdivision of Land with Respect to Private Roads, Homeowners Associations, and Conservation Density Subdivisions. And this is as we took the advice of the ZBA and changed language in Section 8, Section 14025, where we changed the word accessory, uses to accessory buildings, which completely changed the nature of the language. So I make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Wendy Burton,
Yes.
Ann Arendt,
Yes.
Margaret Fallon,
Yes.
Nathan Virtue,
Yes.
Frank Pepe. Absent.
The next item on the agenda is the co-location of cell tower on Quarter Horse Way. And this is something I think we all thought the planning board had taken care of, but apparently Bob informs me that it's something that the board has to act on. And this involves adding AT&T to that tower.
Yeah, so this is actually a very simple application, which involves adding an additional antenna, I guess, on the Bonte cell tower, and also constructing I think a pad at ground level with a generator. So it's a very minor project, but it falls under a different chapter of the code, chapter 160 of our town code, which involves wireless telecommunication facilities. And I think what happened in this application is that the applicant mistakenly made application to the planning board when the application should have come to the town board. And the town board's procedures are more elaborate. I printed out a copy of the chapter, and it goes 22 pages. It's it calls for the applicant to post an escrow. It contemplates that the town board will engage an expert who will be paid for by the applicant, and the information would be more detailed that would be submitted. So what my office will do is to reach out to the applicant and get him going on the correct process, and we'll try and coordinate the procedure so that he can get through this process expeditiously, I think, and but with the correct procedures.
And that'll
So-
run through the escrow account?
And the costs will be borne by the applicant through the escrow account.
Okay. So we approve the application?
Yes. Yep. And this was a change to the code that was made 15 years ago, I think. And it's that's set forth in the code if you have a copy of that. Or you can, if you don't have a copy of the code and want to look at it, I can link you up with the website where the code's available. Yeah.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I do have trouble sleeping.
Bedtime reading.
Okay, thank you, Bob. So, we had, amongst ourselves at the workshop, discussed some more changes to the application for a logging permit. And I sent you all an email, but Bob happened to be voting at the same time I was on Tuesday, so we went over all of the points that were in Frank's memo. And what we have added is a detailed narrative description of timber harvesting, the nature and extent of proposed, oh, there's a typo there, proposed harvesting, and also the hours of operation. And as, Bob, you can speak for yourself, but as we discussed some of these more elaborate suggestions, it is my understanding that we couldn't start implying, by asking these questions, we were implying that these were relevant to the code as it stands now. That we were, by asking these questions, we were implying that they would be complying with the code. Is that basically?
Well, yeah. The idea that we discussed is that, you know, there, as was observed earlier tonight, the code requirements, the code restrictions regarding logging are really quite sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
They're very minimal things that the code requires the logger to do. By the same token, you know, there is very little enforcement authority on things like hours of operation, just for example. So, but we can, in the application process, provide for disclosure that can be seen by the neighbors and other people in the town, so that everybody's aware of what's going to happen, or what is proposed to happen, and can you know, make their opinions known if they want. But we don't want to imply that that, you know, by asking questions that are very specific, what
kind of equipment was
that we have an ability to regulate the amount of equipment that's being used, for example. So it's sort of trying to allow for good disclosure, but not imply that we have more enforcement authority than we actually do.
But what process do we have? So if a permit comes in and an application comes in, and it has to provide, say, if wetland is involved, it has to supply the DEC permit, or they have to prove that the DEC permit is not necessary. But I guess my question is, there has to be a driveway permit that is granted by the highway superintendent. But what's the mechanism before the permit is granted that residents could actually be made aware of the permit? Oh, I know, it's because everybody has to get it.
They receive a letter. Yeah.
And then on the receiving the letter part, the post office has to get a signed receipt back, is that?
I think it's return receipt requested on those kind of things.
Yeah.
And
There usually is, I want to just check the code though.
Sure, it's not that long. Just a second.
I think I answered my own questions because everybody gets a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to move on, if that's okay, to item number 10, which is actually Resolution 11E to introduce local law number 3, amending Chapter 56 of the Town Code entitled Alarms. And this came, Duffy came to the board a really long time ago, and had said that the fire company was getting an extreme number of false alarms, and that it was basically a danger to everybody, to the fire company, and to people who might actually be having a real fire as opposed to a burnt bagel. That was what I had. And Duffy and the fire company took quite a while to get back to us with their suggested changes to the law. And then the town board, basically what we did was we thought the penalties were just way too low for anybody to actually pay attention to them. So we upped the dollar amounts on those penalties. And in fact, I think I did something with Ian on the phone that I haven't even told you about yet.
Great.
But for the failure of any person to comply...
I'm sorry, where are you on those?
I'm
The last page.
second to last page because...
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. At the very bottom, penalties for offenses. A, the failure of any person to comply with the provisions of this article. No, that's it to get the permit. I'm sorry. So it is the last page.
It's B1.
B1, upon the second false alarm, there was no penalty. And I thought, well, why not? In any one calendar year, a person shall be subject to a fine of $250 for that false alarm. $500 for the third false alarm, and $1,000 for each false alarm thereafter. Because we want people to actually pay attention to this. Written notice by certified mail is still the same. First false alarm in any one calendar year, $250, $500, and $1,000. So, do I need to read this to introduce this law? Do I need to read the whole law, or can it just be included in the minutes? Basically,
It will be included.
the substantive changes that we made were in the fines. Did you, when you went over this, or when Ian went over this, were there other substantive changes that?
What we did was we incorporated the changes that were submitted by Duffy. And I gather we incorporated your further comment, Wendy. We didn't receive any other comments, so we didn't make any changes on our own.
Okay, great. So it's the fire company's requested changes plus our upping the fees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right?
Fines, not fees.
Fine. Fine. Fines.
If you're going to be literal. It's going to come back to haunt you.
Yes.
Forever.
So, I make a motion.
I think you should read the resolution part, not the whole law part.
Okay. Resolution 11E of 2022 to introduce local law number 3 of 2022, amending Chapter 56 of the Town Code entitled Alarms. At a meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Stanford, held at the Town of Stanford Town Hall on the 10th day of November, 2022, Town Supervisor Wendy Burton called the meeting to order, and she, seconded by Council Person Jump in, anybody.
Me.
Councilperson
Got it.
Ann Aaron, move the following resolution to introduce the following proposed local law to be known as proposed local law number 3 of 2022, entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 56 of the Town of Stanford Town Code entitled Alarms, as follows.
And that will be spread out in the minutes,
Yes,
the text of the law.
yes.
Then you have to make a motion to have the notice of public hearing.
I make
Yeah.
a motion to have a
Well,
notice.
this is it, it continues on,
Yeah.
towards the end of the resolution.
Can we have the public hearing on the workshop day of December? Because then we'll theoretically all be here,
And then,
except for Nathan, who may not. Okay, I make a motion, what day,
Well,
the,
So you have it on Monday,
the 5th.
December 5th?
December 5th.
Okay.
So that will be a special meeting and public hearing and workshop again.
That would be the 5th. Monday. And the town board meeting is Thursday night.
Would you rather we do it,
Right.
would,
My bad.
it's December 5th, but would you rather that we do it on, at the town meeting? No, it would be easier to do it at the workshop. I take it back. Okay. So do we have to vote?
Yes, please. So you made the motion,
Mm-hmm.
and Ann seconded it.
Mhm.
Okay, Wendy Burton,
Yes.
Ann Aaron,
Yes.
Margaret Fallon.
Yes, but the last page has a typo. The resolution was voted upon by all board members as follows.
Oh, I will fix that. All members
Oh, and
present.
what's Paul Cogley? Look
No,
at
I
that,
meant the
Paul and
names.
Mary are back on the board.
Wow, look at that. I'll fix that too.
Sorry.
That's
Okay,
okay.
so where were we? Margaret
We're
Fallon?
flexible.
Yes, with corrections. Nathan Laverture
Yes.
and Frank Pepe absent.
Nathan, how'd you like to make a motion on number 11?
Make a motion to accept the approval of the minutes for October 13th, regular meeting, and the meeting on October 27th, 2022.
I second.
Thank you.
October 27th, that was our comprehensive plan
No, that was a
It was-
special
it was a
meeting.
special meeting.
Oh, okay.
And Wendy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Dennis, you missed the really exciting part. We introduced the new alarm law with higher fines. Okey dokey. And Nathan, could you do number 12 too?
The abstract for November?
Would this be-
Sure. So in the general fund, there was $63,974.96. The highway fund, $15,648.28. The fees for Bango Lights were $967.28, $975 in escrow, and $7,594 for the highway vehicle fund.
So that's a motion to.
Yes, that's a motion to accept those.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay.
Bob has a question about,
Yep.
Will you,
Local law.
on the fire alarm law, do you want to adopt on that night, or do you want to adopt it at
We
the,
can
adopt it at the
afford
regular
that.
meeting?
Yeah.
you could,
Okay.
it'll be a special meeting, that workshop, because we're having a public hearing.
Oh.
So you can do it,
Okay.
if you so choose.
You have a feeling on that?
I like to just do it at the meeting where we have.
Regular
people.
meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Fine with you?
good, thank you.
Okay. So now we come to the very exciting moment of second privilege of the floor. For anybody who either already spoke on the first one or would like to say something at the second one, please just go up to the podium and give your name and address to Rita.
My name is Roberta Kep. I live at 149 Creamery Road. Those of you who are familiar know that that road has on one end the Cold Spring Early Learning Center, little kids, really little kids. And on the lower end, the other end, is the recreation area. The speed limit is 35 miles an hour, which on any given day, people are flying. But that's a whole other issue. And I've already talked to the Sheriff's Department about one particular individual. The problem is that I am finding more and more large trucks coming down this road. And I think they're using it as a cutover not to go through the main part of town. And even when they delivered the sand to the sand place, they came all the way down, which was not necessary. And I followed the guy, because that's who I am, and I go right to the source, and I said to him, why did you come all the way down? You only needed to access the road to the bank, the gravel bank, or the sand bank. And he said, well, that was the directions given to me. And the thought occurred to me, is there any way that we could have a weight limit on that road? It is very narrow. There's very little space on the sides of the road that are suitable to even get off. We have a lot of people that walk, that jog. One woman rides a bicycle and exercises her dog at the same time. And we have people with babies, strollers, young kids on bikes. And I just think it would make more sense to, we also have some of those good big vans, horse vans, that I don't know how many horses fit in, but I can tell you it's a lot. And I really think we could use a weight limit on that road.
My first thought is that if the salt shed's on Creamery, I don't know how you could have you have to let the salt trucks get through.
Oh, of course, but it doesn't need to come all the way down Creamery Road from Cold Spring.
So you're maybe talking more about you mean a weight limit on part of the road? I don't even know who you talked to about that.
If someone could look into that, please.
Well,
Thank
there's
you.
only two bridges on Creamery, the one out by Cold Spring Road and the one over the Wappingers. And the only way you could institute a weight limit is because the bridge is not high enough or heavy enough to accommodate trucks. And those bridges are, they would hold the truck. So that's the only way the weight limit aspect can be enforced. The town could institute some type of local ordinance for no commercial traffic. You know.
Yeah, because I get a lot of big trucks.
Yeah, well, the commercial traffic wouldn't help you with the horse trailers either.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Roberta. Anybody else? Okay then. I would like to end the second privilege before then. And we don't adjourn because we close this part of the meeting, the regular part of the meeting, so the town can go, the board can go into special session on litigation, pending current litigation. So I don't think all of you really want to stick around for the end of that, but thank you very much.
You just need to get something signed.
Yes.
You can just sign,
Yes.
We wanted to do that.
To close the executive session and reopen the regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. No action was taken. Margaret?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.